SEC coaches have had it with this. What the hell is this, and what do so many of them have to say about it as we head into day one of SEC meetings? And is Lane Kiffin going to get reprimanded, fined for what he said to Vanity Fair that, well, has caused quite the stir? And we've done a couple of segments about this. Going to revisit this particular incident and tell you what I think the SEC is going to do and what the SEC should actually do. Let's get started with the show. But hey, man, also, thanks for being here. What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year-round. If you're into that, hit that subscribe button, like this video, answer the question in the comments below. Do you feel similarly about the topic that SEC coaches have had it with? Or are you with me and like, this is the price of doing business. This is what we're doing in college football. This is what it means to be a big-time college football coach. The topic at hand, you might have guessed, is the 2014 playoff. And we've had a number of coaches sound off in Destin about what they think the right number of teams is and what they think about even being consulted. I mean, Mike Elko has been at least very consistent on how much he does not like having this conversation. And we've got others that just want the rules to be enforced. We've even got others that say, look, we're probably looking at breaking away from the NCAA in the governance model because none of this is working for us. And you have lots of coaches that are trying to sound an alarm in an industry where it's really difficult to take them seriously, but also they hold a tremendous amount of control up to a point. And that's the thing that I want to get across to most people about football coaches is that most of them are control freaks. And when you see the limits of their control, you can see them start to freak out. And I think that's what's happening, particularly at SEC meetings where you've got a number of different coaches with an opinion that is mostly dire and despairing about college football, whereas the Big Ten, they're all unanimously going, hey, we want a 2014 playoff and we want it right now. Greg Sankey, for his part, has said, look, I don't expect us to come to any sort of consensus or resolution on extending the college football playoff to 16 or 24 teams. And we don't actually have to do that. We've got a lot of time. As a matter of fact, they got until December to figure this out, which means that they'll wait until December to figure this out. But in the meantime, since you got these coaches at SEC meetings, one of the good questions to ask is, yo, what do you think about the college football playoff? And Missouri's Eli Drinkwitz said, if you put 24 teams or 12 teams in the playoff, I'm not sure the best team always wins it. The team that gets hot or has the best matchup, that's probably the one that wins it. Maybe that's one way of looking at it. But as we've been looking at the college football playoff, that ain't really been how it's gone in the 12-team format the first couple of years. It's difficult to say that Ohio State was an outlier in 2024, despite it running the table in the 12-team playoff, right? They ran through everybody that they needed to. Tennessee, Texas, Oregon, all the way through to Notre Dame in the national championship game, okay? Ohio State was also a very good team going into that. Nobody thinks of them as a Cinderella or some sort of upstart, right? Even last year, Indiana was no longer being thought of as an upstart because A, they had made the college football playoff the previous year, and B, they were not just undefeated, but they had unseated the number one team in the country en route to the Big Ten championship and a national championship. I don't think there are any upstarts making any waves in the college football playoff. And we'll get to the group of six conversation about this, but also think about it another way. You've got other programs that have been traditionally bad who have become good and don't plan on stopping that. And I think when you look at those programs, and I'm thinking about Indiana, but I'm also thinking about like Texas Christian in 2022 and others that might be toward the middle of their Power 4 pack having an opportunity to get in the college football playoff with 24 teams. You might want to see this thing extended because you're running toward a place where you might be that team that Eli Drinkwitz has talked about, but we have yet to see. Vanderbilt comes to mind for this, and Clark Lee is being very, very loud about how much more fun he's having in 2026 as opposed to, say, 2023, 2024. He said at SEC meetings, you live in the wake of what you create. I've been up here as a 2-win coach. I like being up here as a 10-win coach. He added, I didn't come to Vanderbilt for a 10-win season. I came to win a national championship. I know we have the ground to cover to do that. Look, it's a really good point because Clark Lee came to Vanderbilt with a belief that he could turn that program into a winner. And not just a winner, but one that could win a national championship. For the rest of us that have seen Vanderbilt for basically the last 100 years, that was saying a lot. But the same thing also happened at Indiana, right? Two teams that have traditionally been bottom dwellers in the cellar and doormats for every other team they played in their conference showed up with not just some fight, but was whooping ass up and down, right? Now, Clark Lee hit on Diego Pavia in a way that Fernando Mendoza was a hit for Indiana. I think that needs to be said outright. Now, they've added Jared Curtis, who's a 5-star and a true freshman. We'll see. We don't know what we know until we see him play. And there's this conversation about whether or not they're actually going to be any good in 2026, but that's a better conversation to have now, to Clark Lee's point, as a 10-win coach, as it went to a 2-win coach. And I could just easily see a Vanderbilt at 9-3, 10-2, getting into the college football playoff, sure. But even at 9-3, they're probably a shoe-in to a 2014 playoff, and they might have a chance to get one of those matchups that favors them. But given that we're going to have the seeding, I think, correct in the 2014 playoff, top 8 seeds, they all get a bye, and they get a home game. It's going to be really difficult to run the table, and if you do, that's going to be great cinema, right? We're all going to watch that. That's going to be a great story everybody wants to tell. That's good for the sport. Meanwhile, you have Mike Elko, who is back to the doom and gloom of extending the college football playoff because, well, he likes being the head coach at Texas A&M, and not making the college football playoff is a good way for him to not be the head coach at Texas A&M for very much longer. He said, quote, I don't know why you ask us, talking about why media asks coaches what they think, how many teams should get in the college football playoff. It doesn't matter what we think. I don't know why we're trying to become a trophy sport. What does Mike Elko want? 40. Then I won't get fired. It's okay to make it hard to get into the playoff. The point there, I think, is going to be heard by a lot of people that are against extending the field to 24 teams. Because if you extend it past 12, what's the number you're going to stop at? And the answer to that question is you're probably not. Take a look at the NCAA tournament, which at one point was 32 teams, and now it's 76, right? As the appetite for more money continues to rise, as we get hungrier for more money, you're going to see more teams, because growing the inventory is the best and most engaging way to grow the revenue around the sport. Now, the question that is asked, I don't think entirely as often as it should be, is when does the amount of money that you're going to bring in from extending the college football playoff begin to slow down compared to the amount of money you have to spend to make a college football playoff contending roster, right? In a free market, it's easy to see one cost becoming much higher than the other one, which is another reason why people want a salary cap. And we kind of sort of got it with revenue sharing. We just got teams that don't want to play fair. And I think in that way, they're being fiscally irresponsible. And if they're going to be fiscally irresponsible, they're probably going to have to pay for that down the line, in which case I would let them. But Mike Elko's Texas A&M is one of those programs that can afford to be fiscally irresponsible for a very, very long time, especially now as the price of oil is through the roof and A&M is an oil school, okay? Like Texas Tech. They got the money to spend, which for me, I would say this as a guy that would want to keep my job at A&M. Give me all the money you have so I can get the team that I need to go win right now. I don't understand this. I don't want to play for championships. I just want to have a good season mantra. Look, what I don't think college football coaches get, and I think you'll get this even if you're against the 2014 playoff. I'm a fan of Oklahoma. That means I root for Oklahoma to win, right? All things considered. That aside, I don't make any money from Oklahoma winning. I don't earn a salary from the University of Oklahoma. I don't make any money from name, image, and likeness at Oklahoma. Oklahoma gets my attention. Oklahoma gets my brain. for those two things, I expect to be able to brag to my friends about winning a national championship because that's all I got. I don't give a damn about winning 10 games in a season. That's not a good season for me. I don't care. I care more than being 0-12, but not as much as I care about winning a national championship. And frankly, winning a championship. Winning a conference championship is still a very, very big deal. And it needs to be because it's the bragging rights. As a fan, that's all you get. You don't make no money from this. Those aren't your kids playing. You aren't related to anybody on that team or on that staff. You get winning. And until coaches get that through their skulls, that the majority of the people that root for their teams only get to sing about winning, they're never going to get it. And I don't expect anybody making between $7 and $10 million a year to understand that watching a team like Texas A&M win a national championship for Texas A&M fans is as good as it gets. So arguing against opportunities to do that, I'm just not going to let that one play. Steve Sarkisian went a little bit further with this. He goes, part of the problem is everyone chasing one end goal. We live in an era that's playoff or bust. I feel for people. Only 12 teams get in. That's disappointment for a majority of the fan bases. If you're Notre Dame last year, fine, sure. But you made it the previous year, and you got a great chance of making it this year. Tulane and or James Madison getting in, that's found money. They're happy to be there. They expect to be better going forward, but that's just it. Complacency is what Steve Sarkisian is talking about. Complacency is what A&M is talking about. These are things that they would not allow in their friggin' programs. So I don't understand why they would want us to be complacent about them not winning no national championship. You're not going to convince me that you're going to tell your kids that winning 10 games in a season is what we're here to do. That's not going to work. That's not why millions of dollars get funneled into the University of Texas athletic programs from donors. It's to win. 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 I don't give a damn how big or small the national championship playoff picture is. You're there to win it as the head coach at A&M, the head coach at Texas. Elko also going, if we don't find a way to create some level of regulation in the market, a lot of people are going to go bankrupt pretty quick. We're 2.5 years away from having an NIL budget that's greater than the TV revenue for our entire university. Sounds like your TV revenue deal needs to be restructured, and y'all need to do what the NFL is doing to all the broadcast partners, saying today's price is not yesterday's price is not today's price. I dare you to tell the ESPN, hey, y'all can do without the SEC. Come on, man. Come on. Now, if you genuinely believe at a place like A&M, especially when the money is so good, given the oil situation now, Cuba, hello, that you're going to run out of money to pay your roster, I'll tell this to Mike Elko like I'll tell it to everybody else. Perhaps you can't afford to play college football. Full stop. Perhaps you can't afford to play college football. And I dare any Aggie fan to cop to, we can't afford to play college football at the highest level. They'll never, ever do that. There are a lot of programs that will have to. There are a lot of budgets that are going to get tight. A lot of belts going to have to get tighter because the bottom line is, what are you bringing in and what value do you add? If you don't add any value and you're not bringing anything in, you need to go somewhere where you are. This is big time college football. It's not charity. Not everybody gets to play. Going a little bit further. Talk about breaking rules, right? Steve Sarkisian. Now, it's when I break a rule, if I don't like it, if I don't like I get caught, I go get a judge and I get an injunction. I don't think that's what we want. What we have to get past is that era of college athletics. To which I once again am going, yeah, right now, the market inefficiency is finding a local judge who will do for the university what, well, the rules won't. That's a market inefficiency. Until we find a way to close up that loophole, it will continue to be a market inefficiency. And if you're not looking at college football this way, if you're not looking at it like business, you're being left behind. I'm trying to give you free game. Anybody that owns good real estate will tell you, when a real estate developer comes to you and they offer you this money to buy your land. If you say no, that does not stop them buying real estate. They move past you and they go next to you on either side and they buy that real estate. And the value of the real estate that they wanted to buy from you goes down. So if you got big open land that somebody wants to develop on for a lot of money, you better be really, really clear about your plan to either develop it or enrich it. You got to build on top of it, or you better be able to get the wealth out of the ground. Either case doesn't matter. If you can do either one, it's fine. But if you don't, you are ruining yourself. If you expected college football to mean that you got a bachelor's in business, I would say you're already behind. Because those of us that came from nothing, like myself, we learn about business from the school of hard friggin' knocks. You know what a hard knock is? It's that bill is due and they cutting off the water. We got too many head coaches out here that ain't never had the water shut off. We got too many administrators out here that ain't never had the electricity shut off in the middle of the day. We got too many folks out here that ain't never seen the repo man walk off with their car. Miss me with this. This attitude of you're owed is why you get beat. Nobody owes you anything. Stand and fight. Either that or just get out the ring. It's fine. You know what I'm saying? It's fine. You ain't got to fight. Nobody's making you fight. But you better do something about it if you're in there. We got coaches like Alex Gillespie, and the last thing I'm thinking about is the playoff and the playoff size. Yeah, because Auburn's trash last year, and you're trying to get them to be good enough to make the playoff. You know, you got John Summerall out here, back to this earlier conversation about what the Cinderella stories could be like. He coached Tulane to a college football playoff. Watch James Madison get into it. He says, I would like to hear an argument for why two teams from the G5 need to get into this playoff. That's the new head coach of Florida. And a dude that just coached Tulane into one of those spots. Now, I'm not quite sure what else I can do to make this fit for you if you ain't been through it. So if you ain't been through it, if you ain't worked with your hands here in the last 5 to 10 years, because I know coaches love to tell me about that time they were roofing when they was 19. Bruh, you 60. Don't nobody give a good damn about what you was doing 40 years ago. They care about what you was doing 6 months ago. 6 months ago. If you ain't been underneath your car in the last 6 months, don't talk about me about being a mechanic, no tech. If you ain't been underneath your sink in the last 6 months, don't talk to me about being a plumber. You want to talk about me about being a football coach, talk to me about being a football coach. But I am going to call you out when it sounds like it's just getting a little too rich in here. It sounds like you're sitting around looking at the playoff bracket and wondering why you ain't in it instead of going to beat Texas. Mike Elko, don't cry about it. Be about it. Now, I also said that I was going to talk a little bit about Lane Kiffin here, and I will. But I needed to land this so you understand what it is that you're hearing and why you're hearing it. Do not let your football coach come to you with an idea about complacency because they're scared of losing their job. Back on Adapt and Respond with me, RJ Young. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Share this episode with a friend of yours who, well, might need to get a fire lit up underneath them about just what the college football playoff is or is not doing. I love you for being here. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. The more you let this thing just kind of play in the background, the better it does for our subscriber base. We've already grown so much since I started doing these 20, 25-minute episodes. So we're going to keep doing them for a little while longer. See how many of y'all continue to like it. And you need to tell me in the comments below that you do. So I got this question about Lane Kiffin and about, is he going to face any sort of punishment from the SEC for what he said to Vanity Fair regarding segregation and his difficulty in recruiting at Ole Miss. For those of you that were living underneath that particular rock, Lane Kiffin gave an interview to Vanity Fair over the course of several hours that was a profile of Vanity Fair that's very good by Chris Smith. You should read it. But the part of it that I believe you want to know the most about is him saying, I had a hard time recruiting to Ole Miss because of a racist history and a racist past. My take on that is still the same. We can have that conversation about Ole Miss. We can have that conversation about segregation, and we can have that conversation about what parents and grandparents think about sending their black children to Ole Miss to play football, but not with Lane Kiffin. Not with Lane Kiffin. Him talking about this goes in one ear and out the other. My bona fides on this, I've given them in the past. I can give them again, but suffice it to say, I've written 2 books about Black America. I'm writing a 3rd. This is my wheelhouse. This is, aside to college football, this is what I do, right? And that's why I get to throw this one out. Kind of like my homie Will Leach writing about Arch Manning in Texas. Will Leach writes about baseball primarily. Him writing about college football is like me writing about hockey. If you choose to make that your lead, more power to you. I did my job. But if you see the byline and you go, wait a second, this dude who doesn't live and breathe college football like RJ, like Josh, like Joel, maybe I don't have to listen to him. And you don't. But Lane Kiffin is still catching hell for what he said because he never should have said in the first place. So he told Matt Hayes at USA Today that nobody was listening to what he actually said. He said, I said what parents told me, saying, I'm just the messenger. Why y'all getting at me? Because you the head coach at LSU. Because the LSU Tigers get their mascot from a Confederate Army regiment. Because LSU's past in this particular part of history that revolves around race and black folks as just as, shall we say, checkered as its counterparts, Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Texas. Like, we keep going. Oklahoma if you want to, right? Like, we do that. Like, I'm fond of telling everybody the first law put on the books at Oklahoma when it became a state in 1907 was one that segregated streetcars. What I love most about this is there weren't no streetcars in Oklahoma. But in case we got them, we're segregating them, damn it. Oklahoma's constitution, since we here, had a chance to be modeled on one of 2, right? Kansas, which is a free state, and modeled its constitution on the emancipation of slavery. And Texas, which is a slave state, who modeled its constitution on not. As a matter of fact, we got Juneteenth coming up here around the corner. And the reason we got Juneteenth is because when the Civil War was over and the Union had defeated the Confederacy, the message did not spread. Remember, there's no telephone, there's no radio, there's no wire. It didn't spread. So they had to send, by they, I mean Lincoln had to send General Sherman down there to Texas to one, tell all the slaves, hey, y'all ain't got to work this no more. Y'all can go on y'all separate way. Y'all just get out of here. Because slave owners were not keen to one, tell them, 2, let them go. So General Sherman need to go through there after burning up Atlanta and say, hey, at gunpoint, you're going to let these people go. Wild. But should he face any sort of reprimand from the SEC? For posterity, sure. Put a reprimand out there so that when somebody looks back at 40, 50 years, you can say, oh yeah, the SEC got around and saying, don't do that again. But don't do what again? You know, don't show your behind and how little you know about this history and how little of it you have read, how many people you actually have talked to about this, which I'm going to consider is not as many as you think. I don't see this one going the other way, right? I don't see it working out the other way. I am fascinated by the idea that Lane Kiffin is shook by this. Nah, dog. You shouldn't be shook by this. You get to keep your job. What you should be shook by is if you get off to the kind of start that Brian Kelly did last year, then you should be shook. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Adapt and Respond. If you like the show, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the show, and I'll catch y'all on the flip side. Doses.